Hello and welcome back to the For the Doers podcast. My name is Sayda. I am your host, and I'm so happy to be with you today. I would like to talk to you today about why, after 25 years, I quit my job in luxury and fashion. I quit my job in roles that had defined my life. I had had a successful career in the world of luxury and fashion, but secretly, my unhealed trauma was about to cause me to self destruct. My body was sending me warning signs that I had ignored for way too long, and it was finally time to listen. So, this is the story of what happened when I decided that it was finally time to heal. So, for 25 years, my life in luxury and fashion was a glamorous whirlwind. It was a fast paced environment with impossible deadlines and a culture that I want to say demanded perfection. From the outside, it looked like I was living a dream. I was proud of myself. My friends and family were proud of me. And honestly, working in high fashion was so much fun and really rewarding. I was surrounded by beautiful things, craftsmanship, talent, just fantastic talent, both on the business side and on the creative side. But that high pressure world was also the perfect place to hide because being a workaholic wasn't just okay, it was celebrated. It was easy to run on pure adrenaline and ignore the nonstop depression and anxiety that I was feeling. But my body knew the truth. I had been carrying trauma for many years. I was sexually abused and assaulted between the ages of 7 and 17 by multiple abusers. So it was something that I was trying to hide from myself and the people around me. But it started showing up in ways that I couldn't ignore anymore. It would have such a crippling effect on me sometimes, before a meeting or during very stressful times, even before making presentations, even after having decades of experience, I started having imposter syndrome, relentless. I felt like I didn't belong. I felt like I was a fraud. The exhaustion from this thinking and thinking was so unreal that no amount of sleep or rest could fix it. Like I said, the high pressure environment was a perfect storm for burn. I felt like I was a guest, a ghost in my own life, a guest and a ghost. I was just going through the motions while the real me was disappearing. I felt like the real me was just fading away. I didn't even know who I was. I hit a breaking point, and it wasn't a slow burn. It was a terrifying escalation. Like, my anxiety went from really bad to full blown debilitating panic attacks. I remember one moment driving to work, and I just got out of my car. I got out, looked at the building, and my heart just started hammering in my ribs. I felt nauseous. I was short of breath. I couldn't even breathe. I literally thought I was having a heart attack. I had to, as I was breaking down, just get back into my car and drive and try to convince myself that I was okay and, not having a heart attack. But it just started happening more and more. And that was a moment that the little voice was saying, I can't do this anymore. And it wasn't a little voice anymore. It was a full scream. And my thoughts were so dark. I was actively suicidal because the mask that I was wearing became impossibly heavy. And the idea of going along to get along was even more terrifying than leaving. So I knew that if I didn't slow down and actually just stop, I wouldn't survive. So I took a leap. I chose to surrender, and I chose my mental health over my job. And it was the most terrifying decision I've ever made in my life. I was stepping away from a job that was an identity I built for myself for decades. And even though I had no safety net, no plan B, I just knew I had to stop. And I know that it's a massive privilege, but for me, it was either do this and survive or I don't survive. I don't know if you've ever felt like that. That that it's not just anxiety, but it's this feeling that something has to change right now. And if you ignore it, you're completely going to break. Because I was just broken. I was fried. So I did it. And the first few months were terrifyingly quiet and really confusing because I wasn't doing, I wasn't feeling that I was bringing value. Um, but in a few weeks, I really started thinking, and I realized one thing that was my dad had passed away a few years before that. And I was his caretaker while he was very ill and then passed away after a pretty long illness that year in 2020 and, had to wrap up his life. And I think that because I had hidden the abuse and the trauma away from my parents, that I think that when my dad passed away and then I was finally finished, I guess, with wrapping up his life and grieving, something clicked in my mind and said, well, there's no reason to hide that abuse anymore. And I had to face the horror of it all because that loss had triggered me to finally give myself permission to heal. Choosing to take that step was the hardest thing I ever did and that anyone could ever do. And my first step was admitting that I couldn't do it by myself. And I had to find trauma informed therapy. And that was the beginning of 2 years of intense trauma therapy and finally unpacking everything I had buried away for decades. And it was not easy. I mean, with the PTSD and all of these things coming up that I had forgotten, it was pretty awful. But I learned and had that anchor in the therapy and started to work more holistically to heal because the trauma isn't just in your head, it's stored in your body. So I had to review some key practices that I had learned years earlier when I was diagnosed with depression, still had not gotten to what was really happening. But I started resuming transcendental meditation, which was something that I had done for years. So I had to get back into that because it was just not about emptying my mind. It was about giving my nervous system a break. This is something that I learned through therapy. Again, it's in your body. And I had to give my nervous system a break from having been on alert all the time for so many years. The other things I'm grateful for were hobbies I already had. Gardening is like a meditation to me. Getting my hands in the dirt really helped me to stay present. Um, Also, aromatherapy, making herbal medicine, and the other thing that really helped me was hypnotherapy. A doctor of mine years before this had recommended it for depression because it really helped me to get inside and focus on specific issues. But sometimes not even those things help. Like I said, the PTSD gets so bad, you're just curled up in a ball. But going back to the therapy, that's one of the things that helped me the most when I couldn't even get out of bed. I couldn't get dressed. I couldn't shower. I was just crumpled up in a ball. But I learned some things like, just name 5 things that you can see right now. There's a plant right there with long stems. There is a pillow with flowers on it, just things to get you back into the present. So it was pretty rough going. But again, having all of that help with the therapy really helped me to get through it. But what came next is, what's your identity without your job title? And that was one of the hardest things for me because my worth was tied to being in successful roles that I had. Now I had to learn to value myself just for being alive. And this is where learning self acceptance and having grace with myself became a lifeline. I had to learn to change the self talk, to be kinder to myself, celebrate wins, just getting up and taking a shower and getting dressed and getting through a day without being swallowed up by anxiety or depression or suicidal thoughts. And once you get into the rhythm of that, you start validating your own emotions instead of, like I would say to myself things like, oh, you're overreacting. You're just doing too much. And then it's like, no, instead, I feel anxious and that's okay. Just naming the feelings and rebuilding that trust that had been destroyed because I didn't trust myself. So I was slowly moving myself from defining myself by what I do to understanding who I am and becoming my own safe space. So, as I started to heal, some things happened that I didn't expect. All of that energy that I had used to spend just surviving was opening up to creativity and clarity and peace more than anything else. And from this place of being whole, I started looking at my life in a much more positive way. And, when I had time off and I was able to see some friends, I had other friends who are in the business or are entrepreneurs who would ask me for business advice, especially with retail and wholesale, like starting a business in Los Angeles or creating a flagship, choosing the right neighborhood in Los Angeles. And I absolutely love these conversations. I was still reading business news every day and still on Women's Wear Daily and Business of Fashion and loving what I always did, but I was approaching it in a different way and decided with a friend to start our own consulting business because I felt like I was taking all of those years of just of experience in fashion and luxury and combining it with the wisdom that I had gained from my healing journey. So building a business not on burnout and perfectionism, but on expertise and resilience. And best of all, it's about doing what I love is helping other people be successful. And the trauma was originally a source of a lot of pain. And now I feel that I have a unique resilience that has become my greatest personal and professional superpower. So I quit my job of 25 years not to escape my life, but so that I can finally show up for myself. So in my journey of being burned out to being a person who is still actively healing it's been a wild ride. I've been filled with a lot of fear and days where I feel like I made no progress and I'm still disillusioned sometimes, but for the most part now I am filled with so much joy and peace and feeling like I'm really connected and aligned. So the process is very slow because you're literally rewiring your brain and your nervous system from the ground up. It's about remembering how to just be and actually enjoy your life. So my story is not necessarily a happily ever after, but it's a real story of what's possible when you have the courage to stop, listen, and choose yourself. Because it's possible to build a more authentic and powerful and purposeful life. And it starts with a brave, terrifying, and life saving decision to heal yourself. So my journey is not over, but I'll tell you what, I'm not running anymore. And if my story that I told you today just helps one person to be inspired to heal their pain and live a purposeful life, then I'm grateful. If you've gone through anything similar, please let me know in the comments. And I appreciate your time so much. Be sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and don't forget to comment. I really thank you for holding space for this story today. Thank you. I can't wait to see you next time. I hope you have a wonderful day and have a great week. Thanks again. Bye.